This is Super Zane's Off-Road Adventures, and I'm Zane, and the person holding my camera is my dad.
Hey YouTube. So today, Zane and I put the Badlands ZXR3500 pound winch on the 2021 Can-Am Maverick trail for you ballers on a budget. So we'll just start off with, there's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to take the factory winch bumper off. Not gonna get into that. It's pretty simple, anybody can do it. The only thing we do have to remember is those bolts there, take them off with a wrench or a ratchet, take it off by hand. Don't use a power tool. The swedge fitting that is in the frame for those bolts can let go, and then the bolt will just spin and you'll be stuck. Secondly, you have to drill new holes for the winch. It does not fit the factory winch holes. They're M8 bolts, so it's not a big hole, 5/16 drill bit, maybe a little bigger. Mark it out. You can use a template, drill the holes. Next problem you'll have is the Harbor Freight roller fair lead. Doesn't fit. I thought about buying a new fair lead just not to have to do it, but then the fair lead was too wide for the drum of the winch and it could have caused problems later. I just opted to fabricate and weld in a new piece here, and drill a new hole to mount the fair lead to the bumper rather than drill holes in the bumper that I didn't want to do. I tried to minimize the amount of modification to the factory setup as possible, just in case I want to change something later. If you look in here, you can see that's the factory hole for this. That is where the hole is for the new mount that mounts to the factory bumper. Secondly, over here, got your winch cables, blue and yellow. Make sure the polarity is correct. I didn't. I had to go back and change it, but now it is. So comes up here, and you're gonna want to buy these push lock bases. Fits 1/4 inch hole, allows you to tie a zip tie anywhere you really need it. You can punch a hole, which is what I did right there. That's a zip tie holder holding that zip tie in. It runs up by the radiator, as you can see, up, and then we come up here and it runs down there. Pretty much I wrap the whole thing in a giant piece of self-gluing shrink tube. It glues itself together when you shrink it, so it's pretty much protected. It's mounted to the frame support right there. We'll say that is very difficult to get the proper sized socket on to tighten the screws that I use to put that down in there. You come around this, and we have the grommet that holds everything together right there. It's definitely easy to get to. Reach in there. When from the factory, it's closed with a zip tie just like that. All you gotta do is cut the zip tie and it opens the bulkhead tunnel up to run all the wires back through. So you've got, well, basically 3 wires, one for the solenoid control, one for the main power, one for the ground. So 3 wires have to go back through that hole. It's not really difficult. And we'll come around, open the door. So we'll say this: if you happen to run it the way I did and mount it the same way I did, the Badlands Harbor Freight winch cables will be too short to reach the battery under the seat. And it's not short by much, but it's short enough that you won't get a clean install. Hopefully you guys think that this one that Zane and I did is a pretty clean install. We mounted the circuit breaker right there, so you can get to it if you need to. It's under the seat. Got Torx bits holding it in. We had to make a new battery cable and a new negative cable. Both cables had to be made. We just went to Lowe's, and got the THNN wire 6 gauge, pretty standard, red and black. Factory specs call for 6 gauge, so that's what we got. and we routed it just right along with the factory harness. That thing just peels over and it's got like a double flap on it that you can tuck them in behind. Pretty clean. Again, there's a zip tie holder there, and there is those 1/4 inch push lock bases. Just keep everything kind of tight, neat, organized. Your hot lead is actually right there for the key on power. I didn't have a terminal kit to plug into that plug. It's an empty socket. That's just a white cap. It is made to actually plug the spade connector in if you have them. I didn't feel like buying one for one harness. So we cut it and we put a self soldering shrink tube connector and just tied it into that switch harness. So, and it runs back through the tunnel that's in there, way in there. So that's the tunnel. Pretty easy to get to overall. And after you've tested and make sure everything works, that's pretty much the entire thing. Oh, I will also say that the factory Harbor Freight switch that comes with it, which is that white plug that you see right there, that will not fit in any of your rocker switches, and there's no way to retain it. It has its own little baby bolt set. See if I can focus on it. So there's 2 tabs that come off of that for a handlebar mount. They're 2 very long screws actually that stick out of the base of that. So I drilled 2 little tiny holes and stuck it right there next to the steering wheel. It actually looks pretty good, I think. It's pretty sturdy, won't move. We can go ahead and do that, and it pretty much pull everything apart if you really wanted to. I will say that the Can-Am's dash is pretty familiar. Everything under it is open. Not really hard to get to anything. I'd say the hardest part is probably running all the wires. The THN wire from Lowe's is not a soft strand. It's pretty solid. It is stranded, but it's not as thin as, you know, the factory cable. So you're probably gonna have to deal with that. It's not bad. It just takes a little bit more effort to get it where you want it, but once you get it in there, it's pretty much all done. So I'll give you back to Zane and we'll see what he says.
I wanted to tell all you viewers watching this video to make sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell.